So today I'm talking to Bill Rabbitt, and Bill Rabbitt is a AAFTA field target champion, and he is usually a hunter field target shooter. But this last year, he went to the World Field Target Championship in Mesa, Arizona, and that was November 13th through the 17th of 2024. And I took notice because typically after field target shooters, they kind of settle in on a class and they kind of, for the most part, stay there. Sometimes people shift around a little bit, but for somebody at Bill's level, at the top of the heat to suddenly switch and go to WFTF and the World Field Target Championship, I took notice. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to pick his brain and to learn some things about his experience. And so we're going to do that this afternoon. So how you doing, Bill? You doing good?
Hey, great, Philip. Great to see you again.
Yeah. So why did you decide to shoot at the WFTC this year or this last year, actually?
So I've always wanted to go to a Worlds event, but I always had excuses, right? Well, the major one is they only have two classes, WFTF piston or PCP. The other ones are like the cost. The last several years it's been abroad. So you got the cost of travel, the time off, the difficulty of trying to get your rig across your gun into another country and the paperwork involved. I was like, it's just too hard. But then when I heard that it was coming to Phoenix, Arizona in 2024, my list of excuses got small, and I was like, all right, I should try to shoot WFTF and compete against the best in the world and see what the event's about and see how I can fare in that division.
Yeah. So I thought that was great. It's a good, like you say, it's a good opportunity. It's uh, in the States. It's something you don't get to do every year necessarily. But how long did you train for Worlds?
Uh, so I procrastinated a little bit. My gun was set up as 20 foot bounds until about June when I finally decided to make all the changes, put the different scope on, drop the power down. So in June I had everything set up, and then so I had 5 months of practice, but some local matches, and I shot two Grand Prix. So there wasn't that much time to practice with the rig, but yeah,
Good.
it was my own fault.
Okay. Well,
I procrastinated too much.
I thought maybe you took like all year. I didn't realize. Okay. So, and that kind of leads us a little bit for those who don't know, and some people do, some of the differences between that are unique to Worlds. You're coming from hunter field target where we're shooting 20 foot-pound and we can sit on a stool or a bucket and we can use shooting sticks and 20 the scope is limited to 16 power, things like that. But even in like regular AFTA field target, we typically shoot two targets, or shoot each target twice, and we have two targets per lane, that kind of thing. What kind of differences did you experience at the World Field Target Championship?
Yeah, so first of all, it's a 3 day match. The first day is not pistol, it's all rifle. So you got 50 shots for the 3 days, and you shoot each target once. So on a given day, they have 25 lanes with two targets, and they're each numbered. So at least at this Worlds, they were kind, and it seemed like most of it was near to far, but you had to shoot the number target. There was a number on the base. So you have to shoot each target once, which is a challenge because you don't have a second chance to correct for either your range error or your wind judgment. The other big difference is the amount of positionals. There's at least five positional lanes that you shoot per day. I think it can vary between like three standing and two kneeling. What they had in Phoenix was on every course, all three courses was two standing and three kneeling, which was a surprise to me the first day. I think I shot the blue course the first day, and as I was going along, I got to a kneeler, shot that, and it was kind of far. I was like, all right. A lane went by, and then I was standing, and I was kneeling, and it felt like I had maybe one more sitting lane, and then I heard I had a third kneeling lane. I was like, "What's going on here?" They're like, "Oh yeah, there's three kneeling." I was like, "Oh, no one told me." It was my first Worlds. I didn't know, so it was a shock day one. But yeah, so those are the major differences. Really, the single shot per target is an added challenge at the Worlds.
Right. That's great. So how did you end up doing? I mean, how did you finish?
So I went into it hoping that I was going to be like within the top 25%. I was like, all right, I've been practicing enough. I kind of know how to shoot, but these guys are good. These guys are the greatest around the world coming in. So I was like, if I can get within the top 25%, that'd be awesome. I ended up being tying for 13th place out of about 100 PCP shooters. I looked at the registration or the results afterwards, and the final scores, there was about 100 people. So I did a little bit better than expected, which was great. The I had a 40 out of 50 the first day, a 44 second day, and a 43. So I got a 127 out of 50, dropping 23 points. First place dropped 11 out of out of out
Wow.
of 150.
Wow.
Yeah, it was impressive. But what I was most happy about was the positional lanes. Even though there was a whole bunch of kneeling lanes, I cleaned all of my kneeling lanes, all 6 shots, all
Awesome.
3 days.
Awesome.
And yeah, I felt good about that. And even offhand, I think I had 2 days with three and one day with two. So that's I think that's the only reason why my score stayed high was I just had really good um positional turnouts.
That's
So
great. That's awesome. Yeah, any day you can do your positionals and feel good when you walk away from that lane is a good day.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Um, so for what kind of equipment did you use for WFTF versus what you usually do for Hunter? So I think you use a Thomas for Hunter
Yep.
typically. Did you shoot the Thomas WFTF and just tune it down, or what'd you do?
I did, yeah. So I took the Thomas, I tuned it down. There's a lot of rifles that are good for WFTF class. Like within the top 20 people, there was Thomas's, there was Steyer's, there was Air Arms, ISP, and then Daystate had a couple positions. So at Walther. Um, so there's other rifles that work, but my Thomas, it was so easy to convert from 20 down to 12
Hmm.
that I stuck with the Thomas and just added the extra pieces that I needed. So I got my rig right here.
Cool.
Um, so the first thing I had to do was from 20 to 12 was tune the gun, the hammer spring to the pellet that I'm going to shoot. So I was originally shooting 13.4 monsters, and in WFTF went down to an 8.4 exact. So you tune the hammer spring to shoot, you turn it in until you hit max velocity, and then back it off a little bit so that that's in harmony. And then you tune your velocity by just switching out your jet screw, which is just limiting the amount of air that's going from the valve to there. So you put a longer screw in there. Shorter the screw, the more air is allowed down the barrel. The shorter or the longer the screw, the more restrictive it is.
I
So
see.
just fine tune that. So that was an easy swap out. I did change my barrel, so I was shooting a poly barrel uh, for Hunter with those monsters. I talked to Mike at Thomas, got his recommendation. Like, I'm shooting 8.4s this year. What should I do? He said, well, you probably find a few cases that'll work, but the regular grooved barrel is a little bit more forgiving with the 8.4s. So I said, well, I don't get that much time. So I bought the grooved barrel, and the first I had a box, I had a sleeve of pellets here, and they shot. Well, I didn't even shoot another box because it was shooting better than I could hold. So I was like, all right, we're going with these.
Cool.
After that was the scope switch. So, we're limited to 16 power in Hunter. So you can go unlimited power with your scope in WFTF. So I went from a Night Force MX8 to a March High Master 10 to 60. Added the throw ring on here. So that's extra. You don't see that in Hunter class.
So what power did you actually shoot at?
So I ranged at 60. I shot at 40 most of the time.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but I knew for wind hold-offs, I had calculated MOA values for 40 and 60. If I felt like I wanted to shoot at 60, I knew my hold-offs for that mag. But most of the time I did 40 because it was a brighter picture, a little bit less movement.
Yeah.
Um,
Easier to find
so
a target. Good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So another difference. So hunters have shooting sticks to adjust their height
Mhm.
on a target. If they got something up in a tree or on a hillside, WFTF has got adjustable knee riser.
Mhm.
That's how we get around.
Mhm.
So I added that. This is a Rowan.
Mhm.
Going backwards, I had to
Field
change out the
hook. Yeah.
butt hook. we're allowed a full wrap buttock up and down,
Mhm.
and you can adjust it
Yeah.
during the match.
Hmm.
So some people prefer um, shooting at a certain height for sitting and a different height for kneeling and different height for standing, depending on how their cheek weld is.
Right.
So I'm not sure. Can in the hunter, I didn't look it up because I never do it, but can you adjust the height of your buttock?
No, I'm not aware that you can.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No.
So that's another thing.
Yeah.
And then beyond the gun, oh, the other things you get. So instead of a nice cushy seat, you get a 6-inch maximum bag that you
Yep.
sit on so that your butt doesn't get muddy.
Yep. Did you take that thing filled or did you fill it there?
I took it and I someone else told me a great idea. You take that as your pillow on the
Yeah.
airplane. So I got mine stuffed with like a stiffer cork,
Okay.
which I know everyone just gets those like squishy white pellets, which I don't like because you sink down in.
Yeah, packing
Uh,
peanuts or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, no, I'm gonna bring my cork and walnut husk mix, which is heavy. I'm surprised they allowed me to take it as a pillow. You get a lot of weird looks walking through the airport with that thing too. Shooting jacket.
Hmm.
So you're allowed a shooting jacket, which I'm in hunter or not, which is great for kneeling and offhand.
Hmm.
It only is bad on hot days.
Yeah. So you can
Yeah.
tell a big difference between Hunter and WFTF with that shooting jacket when you're shooting your force positions, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And they call it a hard back or a soft back. Mine's a hard back. It's not really a hard back. It just
Mhm.
has some extra padding in there that makes the back a little bit stiffer.
Yeah.
And that's what I run. When I first put it on, coming out of hunter, and you strap yourself in and you lean back, and it almost feels like leaning against a fence pole. I mean, your legs still move, but at least your back is nice and locked in. And the last accoutrement that WFT had is shooting glove.
Yep.
And I don't run this all the time. I'll do it for kneeling and standing, but it just makes you feel like you're shooting off of a pad,
Mm.
and it takes all the, helps reduce the movement of your hand through there. So,
Very cool. Very
yeah,
cool.
a lot of differences.
Yeah. Thanks for being prepared to show us all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to be controversial here, but
Oh,
yeah. Well, from a hunter field target shooter's perspective, what were some of the biggest challenges shooting WFTF, and maybe some things that you thought were going to be a challenge, but were maybe easier or not really a big deal?
so we'll go challenges. Getting used to this shooting position
Mhm.
that was the hardest thing. If you're not, we're used to sitting on a bucket and sticks. Getting on the ground and shooting off your knee, especially when you have higher power, you feel like you're moving all over the place, and it takes a little bit to get comfortable in that shooting stance.
Mhm.
So I did, what helps is stretching and some yoga or whatever, just to so that you're not when you sit down, you're not like stretching, you're comfortable in that stance, whatever your best natural stance is.
Yeah.
Um, Also shooting off of the ground, and the movement is different. So if you have a target way off to the left and then you got to move to the right, you're down there on the ground, moving all of your stuff from one way to the other is a little bit harder than off the bucket in the
Yeah.
sticks.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Wind hold off, I would rank it number two, just because. And I did the math. Of course, I did the math.
Of course you
Um,
did.
for what I was shooting with the 13.4s, um, there is so per MOA per yard per mile an hour, the 8.4s will move 50% more. And it's almost exactly 50% more than the a 20 foot-pound
Wow.
pellet. So at 55 yards, if you're holding 2 inches off, we got to hold 3 inches off, which on a small faceplate, now you're over in no man's land,
Mhm.
letting it drop in. Um, Another challenge would be target acquisition. When you're at 60 power ranging, sometimes I'll get up and I'm like, I can't find this thing.
Yeah.
And that's why the mag lever is handy. You can throw it down to 10, find your target, bring it back in.
Yeah.
But even still, after ranging, I'll range and then have to go and click my scope. And then I put my eye back down. I'm like, where did that thing go? It's gone. And then I got to do it all over again. So it is, um, that's a little bit of a, especially when you're on your clock. In your normal weekend match, it's not that it doesn't matter. But in competition, that's something to consider. Um, but the other challenge would be temperature inside the jacket. I mean, that can be uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Very cool. Well, what are some things, if there are any, what are some things that you thought were going to be challenging that you just adjusted to really quickly, or maybe another question would be, are there any things from hunter class that you were able to sort of apply to WFTF?
yeah. So I would, I know I complain about the sitting position, but it doesn't take that long to get used to. So I think initially that's the biggest hurdle, like that you noticeably see, but it doesn't take that long to get over. If you're shooting a few times a week in local match, you can get used to it. Um, as far as what's translated over from Hunter into WFT, everything. Your shooting cycle is the same. How you address the lane is the same. Um, your techniques they use for offhand and kneeling, that's all the same. It just feels a little bit different because you're dressed up a little bit different, and your gun has different ways to hold it with the butt hook and the knee riser. But generally, everything that I learned in Hunter translates, except for bracketing. I would say I dismiss bracketing in
I
this
was going to
because
ask you, yeah, if you probably didn't have to use that at all because you have that big scope.
no, yeah, and not gonna. I didn't feel like I made any yardage miscalculations out there. I think any of my misses that I had was just bad wind calls.
Because you're pretty big on bracketing, I think.
Yeah,
And we talked, so yeah.
yep, yep, yeah. I got to ignore that part this time. Just use my mag.
Yeah. So, do you think there are any misconceptions that hunter shooters have about WFTF, or maybe WFTF shooters have about hunter class? Now that you've shot both and you've kind of experienced both,
Yep.
I'm sure you've heard of some opinions that each class has of the other. Not necessarily bad, just maybe some misconceptions that you think one class has against about the other.
Yeah. Well, for one, I would say WFTF shooters if they they think hunter class is not that hard, and it's it can be challenging, especially at the 16 power. I mean, you're very restricted on. It's easy, with a 60 power scope. I'm debating whether it's at 51, 52, or 53 yards. Where at 16 power, I'm like, is that 45 or 55, depending on
Exactly.
how
Yeah.
my eyes doing that day.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. And the target's small, it looks smaller. And shooting off of sticks, they think it's a rock solid rest, but especially when you're starting, that it's not like shooting off of a bench. There's movement until you develop a good shooting stance and technique. That's challenging. It's not like bench rest shooting. So I would say that. And then the other way around, I would say hunter class thinks that WFTF is too hard when it's really not. It's just a different set of equipment. Yes, you get blown in the wind a little bit more, but you get all these other advantages that kind of offset that. Your ability to range well and use the shooting jack in a positional. So it's a trade-off. It's almost not equal play, but they're more similar in challenge. Um, and I would say it's if you're looking at if you're going for a 60, it's if a WFTF shooter thinks they're going to jump into hunter class and shoot a 60 right off the gate, there's there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
So
I've heard it said before, I've heard that, well, I'm trying to think. I don't want to say a lie here, but I've heard some other shooters in other classes say, well, hunter class is the beginner's class, or the, um, And I think that's a misconception that I'll get myself in trouble here. I think hunter class is the class where shooters can come in with the least amount of investment, maybe in
Yeah,
equipment, and get
yeah,
started shooting field target. But I think, like you were pointing out, some of the restrictions in hunter class makes it very challenging. It is very difficult for hunter class shooter to shoot a perfect match. It has been done. I've seen it done, but it is very difficult. It doesn't happen very often. Um, and but on the flip side of that, like you were saying, WFTF, so much respect for those people because they can get down in that position, shoot off a bag, and the wind is moving them around a lot. So I think it's just a different discipline. They're both challenging. It's just a different discipline. So
yeah,
very cool. Very
yeah.
cool. So do you think this last year of shooting WF, well, you said since June, I think is what you said, shooting WFTF, do you think that'll make you a better hunter shooter?
Of yes, of course. Well, good and bad. There. I think some things are going to help me and some things are going to hurt me.
Hmm.
Uh, the if you have any animosity or anxiety about wind hold off, you really kind of it helps you lose that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when you I think in Arizona, the most I was holding off was like 4 to 5 MOA, which translates to about like 4 to 5 inches off, which is a good amount.
Yeah,
That's good amount, and probably some of my misses I should have held like another inch over. But so you get used to holding way over here,
mm-hmm.
but when you make those shots, man, it's nothing better, especially when you can see that pellet do that arc,
Yeah,
and
it's very satisfying.
it's very satisfying.
Yeah,
So it takes away, I think going back when you don't have to hold as much, it takes that anxiety away. You're like, oh, I'm used to holding way over here. This is not that bad. If I have to hold edge of faceplate to make this shot, it's that helps there. But going the other way, not having the shooting jacket, I'm like, I'll miss that and the glove and
that powerful scope too.
the powerful scope.
Yeah,
Maybe like, my eyes they hurt trying to range again.
yeah,
So.
yeah. So, what are your plans for 2025? Which division are you going to shoot this year?
Is this like a major announcement or something?
Mostly, I want to know who I'm competing against.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, all right. So the next year Worlds is going to be held in Northern Ireland in August. And I've never been to Ireland or Northern Ireland. And I figured it'd be a good excuse to go back and compete in another Worlds. So I'm sticking that. That and I heard, I think it's true that they're going to be skipping it Worlds every other year. So there's not going to be a Worlds in 2026.
Oh,
So the next opportunity to shoot one is 3 years from now. So I figure while the gun's already set up, I'll shoot this year in WFTF and then make the trip to Northern Ireland, see the beautiful countryside out there.
very good. Good opportunity. Well, uh, thanks for sharing the experience. A lot of us don't get the chance to do what you did. And so for you to be willing to share some of your insight and the positives and some of the negatives and the things you learned, I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close this?
Uh, so one, people might think I'm on the U.S. team because I'm wearing the shirt. I wasn't. I was shooting as an individual. This was the shirts that they were handing out. They were
Oh, wow.
nice, yeah, nice jerseys.
Very nice. Yep.
So figure with this interview, I'd wear it.
Very cool.
I guess I would just take this time to thank Garrett Quackestein, who was the match director over there in Phoenix, Arizona, and the Phoenix Air Rifle Club. They did a great job. I know there was challenges probably the weeks before and during that seemed invisible to the shooters. It just ran real smooth. All the marshals were great. The venue was good. The opening and closing ceremonies were great. I mean, you know how hard it is to run a big event in a GP.
Yeah.
This is twice as big,
Yeah.
and you got people from all over the world coming in,
Yeah.
and you're trying to represent the U.S. as best as you can. And I think they nailed it. They did a great job. So
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks to
nice props to them.
Yeah, yeah, and it was. I'm glad too because for the U.S. to host it, you want it done right, and from what I heard, they did a great job and made us proud. So
Yeah, yeah. One
yeah,
one funny thought I had when out there is that it was held at a gun range. Their club is on a gun range, and they had a high-powered rifle course going on, and they had shotgun course over here, and it's near an airstrip, so there's military aircraft flying over with Black Hawk helicopters and
It's
stuff.
very
So
America.
yeah, so the people all over the world, they're like, these guys are serious.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very American. Awesome. All right. Well, again, I appreciate it, and I'm very impressed with how well you did. And so maybe there's some hunter shooters out there that maybe want to try WFTF, and
What about you?
yeah,
I know I'm always trying to get you to
yeah, I know.
try it.
Well, there's people that ask me all the time when I'm going to switch to WFTF. I mean, that's happened for years. I've been asked that, but
Yeah.
anyway, maybe someday.
It's hard when you're doing so well.
Well, I've yet to shoot a perfect match, so
All right. Is that going to be the deciding factor once you get that 60?
Well, yeah, if I could get that 60, I would have to think about it.
Yeah.
Serious. All right, Bill. Well, I appreciate it very much.
Oh, great talking to you.
All right, thanks.
See ya.